Here we have an Okuma Epixer XT. It's a 40 size model. We're going to go over a couple of tips on how to lubricate the reel, keep it going. This will be maintenance for in between an actual repair service or a maintenance service. Just a way to keep your reel tuned well and running smoothly. Especially on the smaller reels, I found that lubing the bearings, lubing the handles, getting certain points of lubrication really makes a big difference as compared to like a larger spinning reel or a lever drag reel. You're really going to notice the little nuances of feel in a small reel like this one. So we're just going to go over a couple of quick tips and show you. One of the first ones we want to do is to lubricate the handle assembly. The easiest point is, because there's bearings in these handle knobs, is you want to put a little drop of oil right in there and let it work itself down into the shaft. Just put a drop of oil, play with it a couple of times, and just leave it. The oil will naturally seep to where it needs to go. So you just get a little bit of your Okuma grease that came with the reel itself, and you just add a drop or two in between the handle arm and the knob itself, and then just slowly play that around a little bit, work it in, and that one's good to go. And a little bit more in-depth on the handle assembly, which I like to do. It's semi-maintenance. You know, we're trying to cover not taking the reel apart at this moment. But one thing I like to do is actually remove the handle assembly, which on a spinning reel is pretty common. You switch it from left to right hand. But this is where the second point of lubrication I like to do is by removing the handle, it gives you access to both bearings, the left and the right side of the gear assembly. And it's hard to see, but right in between that lip on each side is the bearing assembly. So instead of having to take apart the whole reel when the reel's feeling pretty good, you just get your Okuma grease or Okuma lube that comes with it, and just in between the gear and the body itself, you just put a couple of drops, let it sink in, spin the rotor, and it'll work the grease in there or the lube in there for you really nicely. And you do the same with the opposite side. In between the gear itself and the body, a couple of drops in there, let it seep in, and you just run the rotor around. And that's all there is to it. Gets a nice bit of oil inside the bearings and keeps them running nice and smooth. So you can see how quickly that was to lubricate the handle assembly and the bearings that the shaft runs through the gear. And those are two quick points. The last one that I like to do on the spinning reels, it's semi-maintenance. I can't say it's without cracking it open, but it's the bale rotor assembly where that meets the bale arm. This section right here is common with rust because of the bearing inside. So, like I said, we don't really want you guys to take apart the reel, but this is one of those points where you can just loosen it slightly. And this one has a Torx 10, which we've discussed prior. You get your Torx 10 hitting the screw head, and you just loosen it ever so slightly, and you just put a little pressure on the bale to pull it away, and you'll get a little bit of a gap in between the bale arm and the rotor assembly. And all you do is put a couple of drops in there. It doesn't seem like much, but that's literally all it takes. You just put a couple in there and it seeps down. You can work it in slightly into the bearing. And that's all you do. Lube the bearing up and you just tighten it right back up. Just hand tight. Once it gets down, just give it about 1/2 to 3/4 of a turn and you're good to go. So we lubricated the bale assembly, lubricated the handle knob, and we lubricated the two bearings on both sides of the gear. And a pretty simple process, but these little points will save you a lot of time and energy with the life of your reel and having to send it in for service or maintenance here and there.